I had received the package from NYXI. They have made a very familiar looking controller, and if you don't know what this company is, they make third-party Nintendo Switch controllers, and well, they sent me this one, the GameCube Joy-Con one. But let's get into what this is, the pros and the cons. I did a short a few months ago showing off my love and hatred for these puppies, the Hori Split Pad Pros. My main issue with these were the lack of specific features like no gyro control, no NFC reader for Amiibo, the lack of rumble, and so on. Because we all like a good scan now and then. But I think the biggest issue with the Hori controllers is the fact you can't use them separately right out of the box. They aren't wireless. If you wanted to use them as a standalone controller, you'll need to fork over some extra cash and get an attachment to do so. And even after that, it's still wired. Though the NYXI controller isn't perfect either, it does have the features that the Hori doesn't, except for NFC. But this does do gyro, this does do rumble, and it does play as a separate controller wirelessly. But let's go over the looks of this thing. First time you pull it out of the box, you'll be like, yep, that's a GameCube controller, only fatter. The Nintendo GameCube controller has become somewhat of a fan favorite over the years. When it first launched, it both looked and felt odd compared to its competitors, but since then it's found its foothold, especially in the Smash community. The one NYXI sent me is a classic purple from the original GameCube eras. They also have it available in silver and black, like the black and silver GameCube. Hey, I'm just waiting for the white and the spice orange. Now, what about the button layout? Of course, we have the A, B, and XY in the familiar GameCube layout. We have the expected plus and minus buttons we need for the Switch's compatibility, along with the home and capture button. In addition to that, we also get a few new buttons on both sides for turbo and for programming the back buttons. These back buttons are a little small on the back, but we'll get to that a little bit later. And of course, we have bumpers and triggers on the shoulders and the two joysticks. Wait, two joysticks? What happened to the C-stick? I guess to bring it up to more modern standards, they replaced the nub of a C-stick and now use regular analog sticks. Yeah, at least they kept it yellow. And how does it feel? It feels pretty close, though it's a bit bigger. Compared side by side to the original GameCube controller, they look pretty much the same size, but it just feels a lot bigger in hand. It's definitely wider with the centerpiece. Other than that, it feels pretty good. It's got a decent heft, and it doesn't feel like I'm going to snap it in two like some other cheap controllers do, and the sticks and face buttons feel pretty good. I saw some reviews of people saying that the buttons felt mushy, but I didn't actually think that. Either NYXI has upgraded them or they're lying. The sticks themselves use Hall effect sensors, so you don't need to worry about the dreaded Joy-Con drift. They feel good and responsive too. The bumpers aren't bad, they feel pretty clicky. And I kind of like that. But these shoulder buttons, the back buttons here, they don't have a lot of travel and there's almost too much noise. Come on, so much noise. Now, I didn't expect them to be analog like the OG GameCube controller since the Switch doesn't really support that, but even the Hori Split Pad did a better job than these. These things are so loud, it sounds like I'm typing when I'm using them. I can see these getting annoying really quickly, especially for the parents. And let's not forget about these back buttons. You can assign other buttons on the controller to these, or record macros to them for quick recall and repetitive tasks, or combos, which is neat, but they're definitely a little small, and their placement feels off. I had to hold the controller weird to really make use of them. And of course there's the D-pad, which is kind of disappointing. This is an area where third-party controller manufacturers usually struggle, and the NYXI Wizard is no exception. The D-pad feels stiff and is prone to miss inputs, but it's pretty clicky, so at least you can feel when you've accidentally clicked the second button. This really isn't a big deal since D-pads are essentially only used for menus or quick access buttons now, but still, it's a little disappointing when compared to the other aspects of the controller. One thing that's kind of neat is that they've included separate Joy-Con rings for the direction of input you use. You can either have the 8-way direction, or you can have the all-around circle where you can move it in all directions. And that's pretty good for specific gameplay, but if you want it like the classic GameCube, you'll have it the 8-way. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but they make it really easy to replace these buttons. And these buttons light up too. Neat. And wow, this is a beefy chunk. It feels a little strange to have my hands so far apart when holding a Switch. Aside from that, it feels pretty good in the hands. Not too heavy, not too light, and it feels secure. I definitely feel like I have a good grip on it, and it won't be sliding out of my grasp and smashing onto the floor. Of course, Smash Ultimate is the ideal candidate for testing this. If you're used to playing any version of Smash with the GameCube controller, this feels right at home. The buttons are where you expect them to be, and I didn't notice any significant input latency. While I don't have any specific way of testing this, when I compared it to the Hori Split Pad, it felt and performed pretty much identical in terms of latency. I think I'm personally just not used to the bigger sticks and the button layout, so it kind of felt like there was input latency, but I think that's just me trying to get used to the buttons. A lot of other people said they didn't notice any. Getting the hang of other games in the GameCube layout can be quite difficult. If I play a game that I'm used to the A button on the right, it's not really on the right, the X button is on the right. Or the X and Y button are swapped and the B is kind of just in the bottom left doing its own thing. When I tried to play Fortnite, for example, I'm just not really used to it. I would click B where Y is, and then when I clicked X, I'd have to go all the way to the right, but it's actually on top of the regular controller, and then A is on the left, and it's kind of confusing. So really you only want to use this GameCube controller layout for games that you like the GameCube layout in. So standard controls don't really work, especially in a game like Fortnite. You might like it for games that originally used it, like Metroid Prime Remastered or Pikmin 1 and 2 Remastered. You might be really used to playing those games originally back on the GameCube with the GameCube controller. So maybe this will give you a nostalgia hit when you play it again with this controller. But it wasn't the best when you're playing with other games that use standard button layouts. It's not wrong, it's just different. The battery is also pretty good on these things. I seem to get 8 to 10 hours off of them after a full charge. One thing I noticed is if you wanted to charge these off of the dock, you have to plug them both in separately. There's nothing to connect the power. But chances are you're just gonna charge them on the actual dock, and that's how I would recommend doing it. And the price, it's not horrible. Depending on where you are, it might be a little more expensive than a Pro controller. So I'll let you decide if you really want this GameCube controller. But you know what, it's all there. If you want to check this controller, you can click the link in my description, and that would help me out. Let me know what you think about this controller, and if you've got it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I hope to see you in the next one. See you later.